William Morris, Chapter 6, Tumblers and Temblors. The 1994 Northridge Earthquake hit Los Angeles at 4:30 in the morning. My roommates and I had just moved into an old Spanish-style duplex in Hancock Park. It was a huge place, even by LA standards. Cathedral ceilings, French doors, a handsome second-story patio nestled in the treetops. The riots of '92 had charged up nearby Crenshaw Boulevard in a fast-moving storm of fire and violence. Real estate values in that part of town plummeted. You could buy any of the giant old-school spreads up on Plymouth for under $800K. It was not a fashionable place to live. But the bang for your buck was insane. Our giant apartment full of old Hollywood glamour cost us each $600 a month. Still, as I lay paralyzed with fear in my largely unfurnished room, the whole building grinding and screaming like it was being ripped from the ground by its roots without any Novocaine, I was pretty sure the whole thing would come down. It was pitch black. I couldn't see a thing, but I lay on my back thinking if I don't do something, this is where I'm going to die. But I didn't do anything. I just lay there terrified, waiting for the roof to cave in and crush me alive. And then the shaking stopped almost as suddenly as it had begun. The place survived the Temblor intact, but I resolved in the moments that followed that I would never again let my own inaction stand in the way of my survival. I drank like a maniac back then. I can't entirely explain it. I hated myself. I was uncomfortable in my own skin. I was alone, far from home in a strange city. But also, I was kind of a beat poet, living an outlaw dream in a frontier town on the edge of the continent. Also, I just liked to party. I remember one morning midway through my tenure at William Morris, arriving at my desk the usual 20 minutes late, and just feeling like shit. My boss swung by and I told him earnestly I thought I was coming down with something. We were in a positive upswing. The previous week I had managed to arrive at the office every morning before him. Mind you, I only did this so he could not hear my rudimentary French as I tried to book appointments for him and Cassian Elways at Cannes. Bonjour, je téléphone de la bureau de requête à William Morris. Il voudrait venir à votre bureau. Thankfully, the French assistants on the other end of the line almost always immediately began speaking English, and I somehow managed to get all those meetings scheduled without anyone discovering how bad I really was at French. Anyway, when he saw I was sick, he was like, "Go home, bud. You don't need to be here if you're sick." But I said I'd tough it out and see if I got better. To leave your desk at William Morris to go home sick, you pretty much had to puke on your keyboard. And by the time lunch rolled around, I was a lot better. The grip that had mired me in a cloud of nausea and pain was lifting. I could even feel my appetite return. Maybe I'd hike up to Mulberry Street on Cannon and get a slice of that eggplant parm, one of the few lunches I could actually afford on my William Morris salary. On my way, I started plotting my evening plans. But wait, I thought, what had I even done the night before? I couldn't remember. The last thing I recalled, I had answered the phone at home, a landline, to hear the voice of an old friend from New York on the other end. I curled up on the couch and immediately unscrewed the cap on a fresh bottle of Dewar's. Oh, shit. I could suddenly recall tumbler after tumbler of scotch filling up my glass on the bar. I wasn't sick. I was hungover. I had actually just sat on the couch at home and casually drank myself into a blackout. Addiction experts will attest. This is not good. It was also not uncommon for me during that period of my life. I was struggling to fit in. I was struggling to find my purpose, my joy. I wasn't good at small talk or hitting on girls. But boy, could I drink. I longed for smart, collaborative friends with an inside track to cool parties. I'd kill to get dragged to some mansion in the hills where I'd get to bond with Wes Anderson and network with the young Turks at CAA. Occasionally something like this might happen. Someone knew someone and you'd end up in the alley behind the Whites brothers' apartment where they were throwing a kegger. You'd get some quality FaceTime with other aspiring execs and feel like maybe this all might lead somewhere. But most of the time I found myself at Sharky's in Manhattan Beach with my college buds, getting drunk over a round of shark attacks, bowls of tropical punch that featured a plastic shark with bright red grenadine pooling from its maw. It wasn't entirely not fun, but it wasn't the reason I had left my life on the East Coast and driven 3,000 miles west. After one such night, I woke up in my Hancock Park apartment and padded into the living room, my brain popping and hissing back to life, to find a handful of college friends sprawled on every sofa. An iBank friend of mine was in town working on the Orange County bankruptcy, and one of his colleagues had suddenly dropped dead from a heart attack. It turned out he had Marfan syndrome, a genetic anomaly whose signs included excessive height and an outsized wingspan. It was a real bummer, and we'd gotten excessively plowed the night before. I made myself a powerful triple espresso, guzzled it down, and then realized in total horror that I was having a heart attack. I very likely had Marfan syndrome too. I wasn't excessively tall, but my wingspan was impressive. I woke up my friends and begged for advice. They rubbed their eyes, pulled on their clothes, and offered some tepid sympathy and went their separate ways. I spent a full hour pacing around the apartment in a state of acute crisis. I couldn't stop walking. I couldn't stop my heart from racing. I was pretty sure that I was about to die. Or maybe I wasn't. But I knew this much. I wasn't going to just let fate happen to me. I wasn't going to just lie there while the roof came tumbling down on my head. I was going to do something. I called one of the few people I knew who had grown up in Los Angeles, Megan, to see if she could recommend a cardiologist. Just writing this now, I realize how ludicrous this sounds. Who has a cardiologist in their Rolodex? What cardiologist is available on Sunday to pick up the phone and offer a consult? Well, I thought her parents are old. It's likely they have heart problems. They're connected. They might be able to hook me up. Megan could sense my distress and she leapt into action. I could hear her and her mom going back and forth about who to call. I need a cardiologist, I implored. Megan and her mom agreed. Dr. Phillips was the man. But this was before the age of the smartphone, and Megan's mom probably had to track down her Filofax and rifle through the endless plastic pockets and tabs to get his number. I didn't have time for this. I couldn't stand still. I was about to die. I told her to call me back when she had the number. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. I had my pad and my pencil ready. Mom says you should call Dr. Craig, she told me, and she gave me his number. That's weird. I could have sworn this was not her cardiologist's name, but I was half crazy. I was probably confused. I scrawled down the digits and called him immediately. I got his voicemail. Not my ideal result, but hey, I was taking matters into my own hands. I was doing something. I left a message. I'm having a heart attack, I explained. I need help. And then I waited. I paced some more, and I waited. I looked at the phone. I made sure it was plugged in. I couldn't understand why he was not calling me back. Could there be a crisis more acute than a heart attack? But the waiting wore on me, and I decided I needed to take another tact. I put on some workout clothes and told my roommate, in all seriousness, that if the cardiologist called about my heart attack, to please tell him that I had gone for a run. And I took a long, soothing, hangover-defeating jog through the towering palms and golden light of Hancock Park. It was glorious. The next day, I made arrangements with my parents' doctor in New York to see a cardiologist at Cedars-Sinai the following afternoon. Dr. Craig tried to call me back, but I was now deep in the frenzy of working to try to build a pitch deck so our little office at WMA could sell Tim and Pat Robertson's The Family Channel, I'm not even kidding, to the highest bidder. Time just blazed away before I got a chance to call Dr. Craig back. I saw my parents' cardiologist. He gave me an EKG and a clean bill of health. What a relief. I was not going to die. I was, as the kids say, standing on business. But Dr. Craig kept calling, and I had pulled strings to get his number. I had to call him back. I owed this esteemed cardiologist at least this much. I waited till my boss slipped away for a meeting and donned my trusty headset and dialed him up. His assistant immediately put me through. I apologized profusely for taking so long to get him back, but explained the cascading series of events and how my family had referred me to a different cardiologist, no offense, who was able to report that I am cured. He gave me all the space I needed to spin my tale, and then exhaled gently, assuringly. Well, he began, I'm glad to hear that you got the help you need. And I just want you to know that if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, where you feel you need the help of a mental health professional, you can always feel free to give me a call. Boy, did Megan's mom have me pegged.